guys are already convinced. I think I'm preaching to the proverbial choir. All right. I think I can talk loud enough if you have a microphone. Oh God! So you know, with the Persians, there's going to be singing and dancing, right? What a crowd! I think go ahead. Sir, are you going to try to do that? Or we just talk? We got good acoustics.
All right.
Wow.
Go for it.
Oh wow! So listen, thank you so much everybody for coming here, Nasser Nagar. Thank you for your. Amy and I had the pleasure of attending the wedding of our son and their daughter right here, and it turned out to be a quick civil ceremony. I think it occurred after I told them if they got married before the end of the calendar year, they get a big tax break. So we did a very big impromptu thing here. And so what wonderful in-laws you have been. We spent a lot of great time in Portugal together for that ceremonial part of the wedding. Where's John? In the hall there? Oh, there she is. Looking beautiful as usual. So this is the first time we've done one of these, and this was kind of, I think we can call it a trial run. We'll take any critiques. My wonderful wife, Amy. Where are you, Amy? Please raise your hand. Amy. So people in business know what joint venture is, and I will tell you, this was not only a joint venture from day one, but day one actually started very, very late. It started very late, well beyond the time that anybody thought that we could actually have a viable campaign. And I tell people very honestly, you know, after 41 years in service, in uniform and doing other things, I'm sitting there at home enjoying the widescreen, because, you know, one example, we got VIP tickets to the 4th of July down in the mall, and Amy and I looked at each other and said, we got this wonderful widescreen TV here. Why should we go through all the hassle and the security? But we were enjoying retired life. I had a lot of personal projects to do. I'm kind of a DIY person, and you know, my house is not small and it's not new, so there's a lot of projects. But we had a lot of plans for our personal life. But then we started getting calls all of a sudden. It was like the 8th of January, and Puneet will tell you. Puneet ran for lieutenant governor. That's really late to make a decision, especially when you're running statewide. Yeah. But Amy and I decided we will have to decide within 24 hours. And just the fact that we got the call, number one, so it was flattering, but we're realistic. Politics is not easy, especially being in a midterm year, especially with the Republican in the White House. But basically, we figured that as hard as it was to run for office, to run statewide, getting in late, and under the circumstances of a midterm election, it would have been harder for us to sit at home watching what was going on in our country and our Commonwealth than it was to make the sacrifice to get into this race. So it was truly a joint venture from day one. She's been a wonderful support, and we've traveled all over the Commonwealth together. And first of all, anybody who complains about gas prices, we're the ones that are driving all over the damn place, okay? So we decided, you know, when we got in this race, everybody was excited about it, and our wonderful in-laws basically said, maybe we should do a fundraiser here. And we didn't know what all the logistics. We knew we had a beautiful house, and we know you guys like to party. But so Amy took it on herself, with Nagar, to put this whole thing together. And so initially we were going to have this catered by Olive Garden. But listening to the mainstream media, we learned that married women were not able to identify themselves sufficiently, and so we changed it to kebabs, right? For those of you who don't know the joke, apparently Olive Garden has an all-you-can-eat pasta, but they require photo ID to get the deal. And now with this, there's a lot of fundamental things going on. And when I mentioned I got into this race, it's almost like we're fighting to get back to common sense, fundamental things, like whether we should have a border and enforce it. And in my mind, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Not to get too pedantic, but you know, the nation state has been the primary organizing principle for populations since the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia. Now, we can argue that it may not be perfect, but we haven't come up with something better than that. So if we can't control the border, you can't control your country. Who do you know how to tax? If you can't limit the people who are voting to U.S. citizens, you really can't control the leaders of your country either. And so those are two basic things that, unfortunately, as I say, I spent 41 years in uniform. I operated on a couple of borders. Some of them were bloody. The Korean DMZ, I was there for 13 months as a commander. Those of you who might know, thank you for that. Everybody loves the story. I was featured in a book about the Cold War. There was a couple of episodes that got to be very bloody. And I kind of rescued a Soviet defector on the border of North Korea, and I lost soldiers, and we caused the enemy to lose soldiers. But borders are never easy. And I was on the Iran-Iraq border. I was on the Afghanistan-Iran border, the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. And I know the importance of controlling borders. And the point is, I spent 41 years protecting other countries' borders and trying to help ensure their liberties. And in the case of Afghanistan, making sure one legitimate person, one vote. I mean, we made them put purple dye on their fingers to make sure that, it was a legitimate election. And then to come back to my home country, our country, and then having to fight for these basic things that is kind of mind-boggling to me. So, people ask me, what is your secret weapon? And I think I give general credit to this. I said, I just want to be common sense. Basically common sense, right? People also ask me what my strategy is, and I tell them, number one, if you have a good strategy, you don't want to disclose it publicly. Everybody will take advantage of it. So I just basically say, and I think it's true, I am the strategy, okay? I am the strategy. The two most populated parts of the state are Hampton Roads, and by far, Northern Virginia is the most populated. I grew up in Hampton Roads. It's my hometown area. It's the most operational military anywhere in the nation. And I spent the last few decades here with Amy, my wife, and my kids here. I got two of my sons, Michael and Eric there. I never see them, by the way. So I say, there's one cardinal rule of politics. Congressman Roth will know this, right? The person that gets the most votes wins. And it should be the person who gets the most legitimate votes wins. And I guess a work in progress. So, knowing and being known in the two most populated parts of the state, I think, is one thing that makes me a strong candidate. Being a pretty good Republican makes me also a strong candidate in the areas of the state where they're more red, like the 6th, which is Shenandoah Valley, the 9th, Southwest Virginia, and the 5th, which is Central Virginia. And I kind of say facetiously, when I was flying around with Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump at the time, in the 757, I said, why do you keep going to the rural areas? Why do you keep going out there? Why aren't you going to where the independents are in the urban areas? And so I learned 3 lessons. Number one, if you're going to run for office, it pays to start off as a billionaire. Number 2, it pays to have your own airplane, so you don't have to worry about that. But the third thing, what they told me was the Republicans don't come out and vote. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. And they showed me the data. They do not come out and vote. So my strategy is basically, Glenn Youngkin gave me a call. He was nice enough to give me some advice. He said, you need to get 40% Northern Virginia. So I'm talking to you all right now, Northern Virginia. 40%, and I think I'll do very well here. Why? Well, I have a military background that Mark Warner doesn't have. And it's very extensive. And I think people respect their veterans, especially, the word veteran means different things to different people. Technically, you're a veteran if you spent 180 days on active duty. But I spent 41 years on active duty before combat tour, so there's kind of different levels there. But I'm also a civil service retiree. I think I'm one of the only person in U.S. history, and I feel comfortable saying this because I do want to be fact-checked. I think I'm the only person in U.S. history that's held flag rank. Flag rank is the equivalent of a general. In uniform, in the legislative branch, I was a professional staff member back in the 90s at the 3-star level. In the executive branch, I was a senior executive at the 3-star level in the Pentagon. And in the intelligence community, I was a 3-star level senior intelligence officer. And so no one else in history has done all 4. There were 2 other people that did the first 3. So I think that'll give me, people will listen to me in the Congress as the senators. I say, as the senator for Virginia, I'd be the highest ranking military officer in the U.S. Senate. I'd also be the most highly decorated combat veteran in the entire Congress. So I will have an outsized amount of influence on matters affecting national security and defense spending. Defense spending is Virginia gets the highest per capita share of defense spending of any state in the nation. So by taking care of defense spending, I can help with national security, which kind of affects public safety, but also our economic prosperity. And security and prosperity are the two major prongs of what I think most Americans want. They want to be secure in what they have, not lose it, but then they also want to grow and prosper, and they want the younger generations to do better than everybody wants that. Just common sense stuff, guys, you know? So I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm at the point now where, you know, I tell people I have four slogans. We had three, not four, but I said I want to make Virginia sane again. I want to make common sense great again. And while Donald Trump says he wants to make America great again, I'm looking around and saying I want to make America again. And I also say, and I also say I just want to stop stupid shit from happening. There's a reason I say that. Congressman Walker know this. The House and the Senate are very different. The Senate's job, as opposed to the House, is to be more deliberative and make things harder to go through. That's why the cloture rules, otherwise known as filibuster, is there. And I worked for somebody who was the president pro tem of the Senate, which means he was the most senior guy in the Senate. And on that note, and he had the record for the longest filibuster at the time in the 90s when I worked for him. But on that note, on the 4th of July, we were down in like 100 plus degree temperature in Lorton, talking about the anniversary, and I said, you know, as hot as it is here today, the Founding Fathers were in Independence Hall, and they shut all the doors and the windows for security for an entire week. But I also said, while we declared independence 250 years ago, we did not achieve independence. It took 6 long, bloody years of fighting, blood, sweat, and tears with the Continental Army under General George Washington, ranging from the shots heard around the world at Lexington and Cambridge. And by the way, I was honored to be a commencement speaker at Harvard to all the Harvard veterans, and I talked about some of the Harvard alumni who fought in the Revolutionary War. But 1775 till 1781, we finally won our independence at the Valley of Yorktown, and Amy and I were in York County talking to the GOP unit there, and we stopped by the museum. But we don't realize that while we celebrate the Declaration, it really is easy to make an announcement, but it's a lot harder to do what you need to do, get your hands dirty and bloody to win it. So I kind of analogize that today. After 250 years, why are we fighting these battles? Let me give you another poignant example for Virginians. We just fought this redistricting referendum. The redistricting referendum was basically going to disenfranchise about 90% of Virginians, or at least, let's say, let me back off on that, about 48% of Virginians, by taking a congressman away from them. Over 3 million people came out to vote. Hopefully you all came out to vote against it. But I say that it came down to one vote. Even though 3 million people voted, it came down to one vote. It was a 4-3 vote in the Virginia Supreme Court. And the thing that really bothered me about that 4-3 vote, and it really did bother me, it should have been a 7-0 vote. Yeah. And some of you might even remember what the issue was. There was 4 potential issues, but the issue that they decided was, what is the definition of an election? And I think, for God's sakes, after 250 years, you think we might have a working definition on that. But what bothered me is the 3 Democrat-appointed justices who voted against it. And so I surprise people when I say that I want to be on the Senate Judiciary Committee, because I think a lot of our fundamental issues are being decided in the judicial branch, for better or for worse. And I'm very proud to say that people ask me about pro-life, and they ask me about the Second Amendment, things like that. I says, well, you know, as a citizen, I can't do much, and even in the Congress, I can't do a lot, but I recognize that getting the right person in the White House was the way to do it, because he would be able to appoint Supreme Court justices. And one of those justices, Neil Gorsuch, was my summer intern back in 1991, and so I'm very proud of the work he's done. He's taken a lead on some major decisions, including getting rid of bad law. I mean, Roe v. Wade, regardless of the way you feel, was not good law according to the Constitution. There was a much more important decision on the financial side. It was the Chevron. They overturned Chevron. Chevron basically allowed the regulatory part of the executive branch to make decisions. So the courts, and it just so they're basically undoing decades and decades of things that should not have been done in the first place. So getting back to the story about the 4th of July, and the fact that I work for the President Pro Tem of the Senate, I did a little research. The guy's name was Strom Thurmond, by the way. You guys might know who he was. But I actually dealt with him quite a bit. And I based on my research, when he was born in 1902, there were Americans alive that were alive when George Washington was the president. Wow. Believe it or not. We had a couple of centenarians, more than a couple. So I touched a senator who could have physically touched one other person who could have touched George Washington when he was the president. Now, the purpose of that story, besides the little wow factor, is even though 250 years seems like a long time, it's not. It's not that. We're still a developing nation. Even though people take things for granted, I'm saying you can't. You got to fight for it. You got to do it in a legal way at the ballot box, and that's what we're all about. And so, it's like we're in our adolescence. Unfortunately, half the country is acting like spoiled teenagers right now. And I say, to half the country, the most important word is free. The other half, the most important word is freedom. And so I think that being the mature adults in the room, I think it's important for us to go about the business of governance and voting and exercising our rights in a civil society to elect good people with common sense. I hate being partisan. I worked in the Senate when I worked across the aisle, and I was telling people earlier, I was a Clinton appointee. Even though I was working for the Republicans on the Hill, I was one of the few Clinton appointees. It was at a time when Bill Cohen, who was a Republican senator, went over. So I was well respected by both sides of the aisle. So it would be nice to get back to that, do things that are good for the people, common sense things, without all this, bipolar or nonpartisan activities going on. So anyway, there's a lot more I could talk about. I mentioned I'm the only attorney in the Senate race, and I think lawfare has become so important. And I'm used to warfare. I'm used to warfare, but lawfare is a different animal. And I tell the story, Amy was at my house on a Sunday with me, and I got a loud knock on the door. A really loud knock on the door. And I thought they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And it turned out to be the FBI. And they flashed their badges. They said, "You know why we're here?" And I said, "No, I do not." And they said, "Well, you've been identified as the missing link between the Trump campaign and the people dealing with Russia." And I said, "Okay." I said, "You're right, actually. But they knew I was a general. They didn't know I was a lawyer." I said, "You have a search warrant. You have a warrant." And their jaws dropped and say, "No, we do not." And so I said, "Listen, guys, I'm going to help you. I'll put this whole thing to rest. I knew exactly what did and didn't happen. My name hasn't been made public, by the way, not even the Mueller report. That's no accident." And I said I would sit down with them and tell them everything they needed to know to make this BS thing go away. I'll call it the Russia collusion fraud. So instead of taking me up on my offer, and I told them I'd give them a couple of hours all the time they need, I ended up getting a subpoena in the mail asking me or directing me to turn over 19 months worth of my private correspondence with 11 different individuals. And I'm thinking, I can't believe I just served overseas for all those decades, and I come here and I'm the victim of a rogue police action that had, the whole thing was fabricated, just to make sure you guys know. And I can go into details, but I won't. So anyway, Amy's been saying, "You need to write about it, you need to write about it." But with all the vitriol, I knew it would get lost in the noise, so I wanted to do it after the fact, after Trump was no longer a factor, and I didn't, at that time, I didn't expect him to come back, but now I have to wait longer. But one of the issues was, who was lying the most about what happened? Adam Schiff. Who was Adam Schiff's counterpart in the Senate? Mark Warner. And Mark Warner had the same information Adam Schiff had, but he never stood up and said, "Adam, I'm not sure, he could have done it privately." But Adam kept basically saying that all these things, he had the whole American public believing that there was something that actually happened. And so, total lack of leadership. So I'm not here to talk about Mark Warner, but I know people want me to talk about him, but this point, I'm just trying to do what I believe is the right thing, and I hope the voters can see what's, I think, in their best interest, and in the interest of everybody is for everybody to get along, take care of America first. I wrote Donald Trump's national security platform, his foreign policy platform, and I'll just say this one last thing, is he was getting criticized left and right by, you know who, the powers that be, the New York Times in particular, about not having a coherent foreign policy. And so you heard all the things he said. So I ended up writing his foreign policy platform that I thought was a framework for all the things he said. And I basically had him read it right in front of me on the airplane. And he read it. He goes, I love it. I love it. And I said, well, I want to get it published. He goes, publish it. I said, well, I want to call it the Trump Doctrine, but your campaign doesn't want to do that because they think it will tie your hands. He goes, call it the Trump Doctrine. So after the New York Times said he had no policy, I had one that kind of complied with the 800-word limit, tried to deliver it to the New York Times, they wouldn't print it. All right, that's how bad it was. So that was another big data point. The very paper, the paper of record, or maybe the leading paper maybe in the entire world, refused to print one of the main party candidates after they criticized him for not, having it. So anyway, it was a long campaign. It was an amazing campaign. And at the end of his first term, he put me at the CIA to be his senior appointee there, and I will go as far to say that I was there to be the next director. It was at the height of COVID. I did meet with him in the Oval Office. I say one-on-one, but Mike Pence was off to my left. And I talked him out of doing something that he really wanted to do. And I had a good reason for it, but it was based on top secret information I had from my time at the CIA. And I did not know, as funny as it might sound, I didn't know if the Oval Office was clear for secret information, much less top secret. I also didn't know if the Oval Office was being recorded. And because it was at the height of COVID, I didn't think it was appropriate for me to lean over the Resolute desk and whisper in his ear. So I basically just gave him my recommendation, and to his great credit, he followed my recommendation. And that was his second or third time where he actually followed the recommendation I gave him that was not what he wanted, was inclined to do initially. So I tell people, and I know Donald Trump can be very divisive, if you love Donald Trump, I'm definitely your person in this race. If you don't like Donald Trump, I'm definitely your person in this race. Because at least he'll listen to me. He's not going to be listening to Mark Warner. And that's especially a poignant point now with Lindsey Graham passing. And Lindsey Graham was strong Curtis replacement. I knew him as a freshman senator, and the last time I saw him was in Afghanistan. But I think there's a void of, especially with what's going on in Iran right now, we have Iranian Americans here. I think Donald Trump needs somebody with my background that he trusts to be able to talk to him about a lot of these foreign policy things. With that, I will end, and I just want to once again thank you, and I wish I had time to recognize we got friends, family, supporters, people that have put in blood, sweat, and tears, and the reason why I'm raising money, by the way, money is the lifeblood of politics, but I owe people money, but I tell them the same thing, just like you, I'm a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. I came in this race. People ask me to step up, and I'm in it. So, but they have sacrificed a lot of their time, expertise, emotional energy. So we've been told, and where's Patty? Patty's back there someplace. Patty's our rep. By the way, I should have introduced Patty as well, but there's no end of people I need to introduce. But she's our representative to the Republican National Committee. Patty. Because whoever the nominee is, Patty is going to be our conduit to the RNC to get national money and make sure that they understand that there's a fight here in Virginia and we deserve to get the resources.
It is already on the way. We're already identified as one of the 17 targeted states that are going to get extra money and extra resources. We're going to get more money than 2/3 of the other states.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm so happy to have so many witnesses to what you just said. Okay, I know one young, smart man from Fredericksburg wanted to ask me about nuclear power, and people ask me about the economy. You know what? I love AI. I'm using AI. It's coming. I tell people you need to get on board. It's kind of like, rejected the internet back in the 1990s. But I asked people how many nuclear power plants are here in the U.S. And I asked people how many deaths have occurred from nuclear radiation in the entire world in the 75 years that nuclear's been around. The statistics are basically nuclear is the best. It's the cheapest, the cleanest, most reliable, and the safest. What's not to like, as they say. So I think nuclear power will, the two biggest components of affordability are housing. Housing affects all generations. So my main solution there is I want to increase or eliminate the capital gains tax on the sale of a principal residence. Okay? The older generation, my generation, it'll make it easier for them to sell. It'll increase the housing supply. It'll lower all housing prices, including rentals. But it'll also have two other effects. It will lower property taxes, given the fact that housing prices are lower. It should lower your insurance. So it'll have a big trickle down effect. But if you don't think about this, it will make it more affordable to live closer to where you work, which also helps with energy, the gas prices. So basically trying to make housing more accessible, and also on the energy side, I think energy is everything a nation does. I want us to make us more self-sufficient, and so I'm a big advocate of the small modular nuclear reactors. And I said, how many nuclear reactors do we have in the United States? About 80. How many radiation deaths have occurred since the advent of the nuclear industry? The only ones were in Chernobyl, because of the bad Soviet technology. It didn't happen in 3 Mile Island or Fukushima. So when I say how many nuclear reactors do we have in the United States, what number did I give you? 80. You're right, but double it. You know why? The Navy has about the same amount on the ships.
Wow.
About the same amount of ships. Aircraft carrier have 2 nuclear reactors, and they're much more dense. The Navy and I just went to Norfolk. The first ever awarded the Presidential Unit Citation to a military sea lift command ship, which is a logistical ship that just returned from Operation Epic Fury. So we were honored to be invited down there as guests to see that. But while we were there, I think, you know what? Norfolk's got more nuclear reactors right next door, and nobody questions it. And we also went down to the Suffolk area and talked, and they've had 2 nuclear reactors down there. They're supposed to have 3 or 4, but just 2 since the early 70s. Everybody's fine with it. So anyway, I just wanted to debunk a lot of what the left has been saying about the energy part too. So anyway, once again, thank you guys. Thank you for opening the house.
What's the message for people who are here for Bert? It's important in the primary. Bert has to become the nominee. You have to tell your friends and family. Most importantly, go ahead. What do you want to take?
I know what you're saying.
So it's very important that you take pictures with them, post on social media, Facebook, because this is a very unique gathering. The best thing is, thank you all for opening your home. And the best part is the Persian food. I think it's Patty and I were kind of discussing the food is on the mind. Usually you get the other kind of food, which is not that great, but this is fantastic. So it's so important that the message spreads around North Virginia and the rest of Virginia that why he is the able, capable, common sense candidate. So folks, take pictures with him, post on social media, and most importantly, as he said, money. You gotta ask your friends, even $50,
I didn't say money, but I'll second that anyway.
Yeah, we need your, or he needs your support in terms of fundraising. Small dollars is what will take, and I believe the large Persian community, the Indian, the Asian, the minorities, and the best part is, Bert is one of us. That's the best part, and that's the reason why we need to rally behind him and see why he is the clear choice to be the next U.S. Senator from Virginia. With that, thank you all, and please.
One more crass piece of commercial.